Welcome to Not a Roofers podcast, where we discuss roofing
without all the jargon. I'm Brianna.
And I'm Charity.
And this is today's episode.
Welcome back to Not a Roofers podcast. Today we are discussing flashing, and this will be our very first two-part podcast.
So, as Charity said, this will be a two-part episode, and that is because, if I'm counting right, we have 12 different types of flashing that we're going to be talking about in some capacity. And that's just way too much to discuss on one episode, so that's why we're going to split it into two. But before we get into anything else, we're going to go to the definition of flashings. So flashings is a noun, and it is a thin material that is usually galvanized steel, but it could be another metal type that is used to direct water away from critical areas of your roof. And besides that, flashing is used where the roof plane meets usually a vertical surface. So that is the general definition of flashing. So, Charity, how about you introduce the 6 types of flashings we will be looking at today?
Absolutely. So, like Brie said, we are going to go through 6 different types of flashings. And something to note on the flashings is that sometimes flashings work together. So like flashings we list today, some of them will work together with flashings that we list on Friday. So just note that when we talk about them. So we have continuous flashing, step flashing, drip flashing, valley flashing, base flashing, and counter flashing today.
Got it. So that is, if you count them, 6 different types of flashings. And do we want to explain what they each are first?
Yeah, so we'll start with continuous flashing because that's the most common type. And continuous flashing is also sometimes called apron flashing. So if someone's talking to you and they mention apron flashing, it's the same thing as counter flashing. It is legit the same exact thing, just different names for the same product, which is just one long piece of flashing that is put between a vertical wall and a sloped roof.
Okay, sounds pretty self-explanatory. Super simple. So then we have, you said step flashing was next? So then step flashing is a rectangular piece of flashing that is bent into a 90-degree angle. So go back to geometry class, 90-degree angles, in the center of it, and it is used for roof to wall flashing. So this is where if you have a roof and then it meets a brick wall or something, that's where you're going to see step flashing.
And then we have our drip flashing, which I had no idea what drip flashing was before starting this. So I am also learning something today. So drip flashing is also known as drip edges. So just keep in mind that it is a flashing type, but it, again, has a different name sometimes. And it is installed underneath the roofing felt right on the edges of the eaves of the roof. So this helps the water drip off the roof without damaging the home.
So if you have ever looked at a house and you see metal coming down from where drains and whatnot are, that's what that is. Then we have valley flashing. We talked about valleys not too long ago, like I said, and we talked about the fact that there's flashing. And so valley flashing is usually a W-shaped piece of metal, just to put a mental image in your head, and that's placed on top of the roofing underlayment and where the valleys meet. And we talked about where the valleys are last time. If you want a quick reminder, it's where 2 sloped edges of a roof will meet. It makes a V shape with the roofs, and it's in that middle part where they meet. That's where the flashing goes.
Our next flashing type is base flashing. And base flashing is one of those types of flashings that is used in conjunction with a separate type of flashing. So base flashing goes underneath as like a first layer of flashing, but then another type of flashing goes on top of it. So base flashing will be seen around roofing features like chimneys, um, where they're just, you need a little bit of extra protection. And then the type of flashing that goes over it is called a counter flashing. So the counter flashing will always be over the base flashing.
Got it. So those are our 6 types. We'll remind you of them right now. So we have continuous flashing, step flashing, drip, edges slash drip flashing, valley flashing, base flashing, and counter flashing. So now that you have at least 6 of them, we're going to talk today just about why flashing was designed and what it's supposed to do, what it protects. And then next time we'll get into how to tell if there's problems with your flashing and the reasons those problems occur. So in the definition, it talked about the fact that flashings, you know, direct water away from critical areas of the roof, and that's really what it is designed to do. And flashing is designed to be tough. I mean, it's made out of metal. Metal's a tough material, right?
Depends on the metal.
I
There's
mean,
some pretty flimsy metals.
there
Like my
is.
pure gold ring is technically a metal type, and if I press hard enough, it will bend.
Yeah, okay. But flashings in the definition, they're usually made out of galvanized steel. Steel is tough. So these things are meant to take a pretty good hit from weather and other things. But with that, I mean, they can get damaged. Like I said, we'll talk about that next episode. But really, flashing is there to protect the most vulnerable spots of a roof.
Um, some pretty vulnerable spots on a roof are actually where we have our base and counter flashings. So around objects like chimneys, vent pipes, um, windows, doors, and walls, all are pretty vulnerable places that we would like to move the water away from,
So
which
pretty
is
much,
like,
what you're saying is anywhere where there's not a continuous piece of the roof coverage. So anything that
anything that there could
disrupts.
be cracks or
Yeah,
creases or openings anywhere, like that is where you move the water away from.
yeah. So I mean, that's a pretty important part of the roof, I'd say.
I mean, I don't want my roof leaking.
Well, and think about, I mean, I have this dream of having a house that has a fireplace, which means I need a chimney. And, you know, you don't want your chimney leaking. That just sounds kind of awful.
When I moved to Florida, it was my dream to have a house with a fireplace, but in Florida, that's such a thing. So when I moved to Oklahoma, I was excited that I could potentially have a fireplace in my house.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, we had a fireplace, and in the winter, it's one of my, well, even in the fall, like, it's one of my favorite things to have a fire going. It's just like so soothing while also providing heat. And, if you have that on your house or even other buildings that have vents and whatnot, you don't want those things leaking because they're important to you. Like fireplaces are important to people. Proper ventilation is important. And so you don't want those places that are important causing problems, which is why flashing is important to your roof and its overall well being. So I think that leaves us at the end of today's general episode. We know we're breaking it up into 2. It's mostly because we just want to keep these episodes short, as we've been doing so far, so that it's just a little bit of roofing knowledge every time you listen. So we will get into the next 6 flashing types in the next episode, which will be on Friday, and we'll talk about the signs of flashing problems and what those are caused by. And this will be one of our first episodes where we don't have a definition at the end, because we will talk about our definition of flashing next time.
All right. Well, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, you name it, send us an email at marketing@riffmedics.com or message us on any of our social media platforms. We would love to answer those for you.
Until then, we will see you next time, and have a good day.
Bye.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. If you've been loving what you're hearing, make sure to press the subscribe button so you get notified anytime we post a new episode. Episodes come out on Monday and Fridays. Please feel free to share this podcast with a friend. We'd love everybody to be able to join us and learn more about the roofing industry as we go along on this journey. If you don't already, follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. I will put all of our information down in the show notes below. Feel free to contact us with any questions or any roofing ideas that you would love for us to talk about. I hope you have a great day, and we will see you next time.